Gameplay, commentary, advice. I recently played in a Strive tournament and put together these elements and everything else it had to offer. So hopefully this not-so-subtle reference will cause many viewers to stick around because if you want to learn from my mistakes, you can do it. I put everything I learned into this one video. Now you just have to watch it. So without further ado, this tournament is known as Fish Sticks and Flash Kicks, and I hear Yoda is off that voodoo again. To kick off Fish Sticks and Flash Kicks, we get to start in Winners Round 2, but in exchange, we must fight Loki, the Eno player. This isn't the toughest matchup for Nago, but it's certainly one I struggle with. After a trade, Loki takes the first advantage, which could extend all the way to my death if I can't find my way out of the corner. After they slide under my burst, we initiate a scramble, spending all of our resources to compete for a first round victory and secure the momentum heading into round 2. But now that all burst and tension gauges are empty, I take a tiny bit more damage before I'm able to find my first solid opening, sending Loki across the screen and through the wall. On the reset, I expect Loki to go for a slide, but they go for a dive kick instead, and catch my backdash to close out the round. In round 2, I travel to Loki where I now catch their backdash to deal a solid chunk of damage and set up my corner pressure. Though Nago is only intended for strike-throw mix-ups, we can always use a Roman cancel to break the rules and combo off our overhead. As neutral resets, Loki beats my DP with a slide to gain a little bit of mileage, but luckily, I catch them checking my Fukyo with another DP, and win the round. Heading into round 3, I win round start and push Eno to the corner. What's more, is that they waste their burst, and I secure a wall break and positive bonus before even 10 seconds have passed. But something's not right. I ignored the math and I spent too much blood. And after blocking my greedy YRC, Loki takes the first game. In game 2, I get another round start win, and though Loki reverses the situation with a dive, I reverse it again with a burst and punish them for jumping this time. Knowing full well that 6H meant death, Loki spends their burst and meets me at mid-screen. I quickly put an end to their pressure, and since I read their preceding reversal super, I'm able to get the punish. But my tap dust gets interrupted. Guess I already used that one. And it takes a GameStop trade to secure round 1. Round 2 is a weird one. I choose to close the gap with this clone and 3 command dashes, which effectively leaves me with 0 remaining blood to spend for the rest of this round. But hindsight is 20/20, and in the moment, I must have forgot to do my math again, because I spend more blood anyways, Loki sees it coming, and they're more than ready to take the round. Which brings us to round 3 of game 2. And to be honest with you, I've never not gotten 3-0'd by an Eno. And I'm half expecting this set to go the same way it always has. I do manage to find my way out of the corner and secure some damage of my own, but Loki is just too ready to turn on the aggression and punish me for my hesitation time and time again. But one thing I know for sure is that they really want to bait out my burst, and because of that, I'm able to find the right time to use it. And at full screen, I owe my victory in this game to the range and speed of Nago at level 3 blood. Now that we're well into this set, here's a useful piece of advice when it comes to fighting Eno. Defense is played at mid-range, not when Eno has already found her way in. Her high-low strike-throw mix is her best asset by far, and blocking with a 100% success rate is near impossible. The key to winning this matchup is to remain in neutral for as long as possible, especially if you don't have a meterless reversal like Sol or Kyle. But then again, I'm nowhere near being an expert at this matchup, so if you have a better game plan than me, please let me in on your secrets. Anyways, I get a really solid start in the next round, dealing massive damage with a couple of 6Hs before Locky escapes my pressure with a dive. As their pressure ends, I catch a backdash to gain some blood back and some space back, but Locky uses another dive to deal with my spin. An overhead beats my grab, and they then try to call out an anti-air with a super. A counter poke lets me reverse the situation, and I'm able to catch their backdash soon after. Locky uses dive to get in again, and after guessing wrong twice on defense, I decide to spend my burst, hoping to secure the round. And after blocking their next dive, a counter hit lets me do just that. In round 3, Locky avoids my clone with an air dash and then low profiles my far slash to lock me down in the corner. After a reset, I'm able to block a triple overhead, but I try to interrupt with a 5P, leading me to get counter hit and sent through the wall with a super. On the reset, I can't afford to guess wrong again, but I do, and that's gonna be a perfect. Still recovering from that perfect, I choose an extremely passive start in game 4, while Locky continues to turn up the heat. I feel like it's too early to be cornered like this, and since my defense keeps failing, I spend burst to get some breathing room. And it's obvious that Locky does not want to play defense right now either. And since we're both so desperate to do what we're most comfortable with, offense, any neutral game that otherwise would have been played in the remainder of this round ceases to be entirely. It becomes a very explosive matchup, one advantage state after another. But in the end, my impatience does not get the better of my defense, and I'm able to secure the round. The next round starts great for me, but I mistime my bite, which could have led to a checkmate situation, and instead, Locky completely shifts the momentum in their favor. I take massive damage, being at level 3 blood, and to add insult to injury, Locky keeps their advantage by breaking the wall with a super, and puts an end to my life soon after. In the final round of game 4, I do gain the first advantage, but I also realize I'm giving Eno a bit too much space here during my pressure, and after sliding right under my burst, Locky reverses the situation the same way they did in round 2. I get counter hit, they super me through the wall once again, and I guess high, but Locky goes for a low to close out the set. Probably should have fuzzied that one. But regardless, we gotta hold that L for now and make our way down to the losers bracket. Great games, Locky. That was fun.
Full Metal Alchemist. Full Metal Alchemist.
Even though we just played in Winners Round 2, we're now in Losers Round 1, and that's just the way it be sometimes. That being said, our opponent is Rebellious Rager, and after they whiff an early burst, I'm able to unlock my comfort zone in just about 5 seconds. Between Nago's massive amount of chip damage and a bite, I'm able to get them to dangerously low health before they jump my spin to break free. I don't take much damage, but I do show a little too much respect in trying to bait a burst when they don't have one. However, I find a raw Rekka to close the round anyways. Rager goes for a cross-up to open round 2, but after blocking, I'm able to find 2 counter hits that lead into a wall stick and a super, which is always a great time to rehydrate or do some thinking about the matchup at hand. Upon the reset though, I'm thinking I just mistimed an auto-timed meaty, and now things aren't looking so great. You see, in a matchup between 2 sword characters, my philosophy is that the one with the longer sword typically holds the advantage. But that advantage fades away as we transition into close range combat. And with a super solid read and a well-timed meaty, Rager secures the second round. Close Slash beats my spin in round 3, and Rager gains some ground before setting up a tether. Fortunately though, a couple of trades leaves me with the advantage, and I catch Rager's backdash to secure massive damage. Twice I punish their wake-up options with command grab, and from there, a simple burst bait wins me game 1. In game 2, our opening exchange is a weird one, but I end up getting the conversion, gaining an early advantage, and finding another opening that leads to a wall break. Upon the reset, Rager lands at 2S, but I catch the run-up grab attempt with a 6P, and after a Roman cancel, I land a corner carry combo that leads to the kill. The next round starts out pretty mellow, but only briefly, as I fail to whiff punish with spin, and then accidentally get a cross-up and bait out the burst. I get a corner carry to punish, making sure to use lots of Rekkas and heavies to keep my blood balanced, and then catch Rager off guard to get the wall break. From there, I am once again afraid of a burst that does not exist, but we take the game anyways. We're now up 2-0, meaning we only need one more game to take the set. And though I land a bite to punish Baikon's counter, they punish my meaty attempt with a back throw and force out my burst. But a spin gets me right back in, and after a Rekka, I catch Rager not blocking on wake up, bait out their burst, and take round 1. With that, we've brought Rager down to their tournament life. So if they'd like to mount a comeback, it is absolutely imperative that it begins in this round. And with some clever adjustments on both defense and offense, it's looking like they understand the situation very well. After dodging my bite, they convert off a sweep for a solid chunk of damage, and then catch me completely off guard with a throw mix-up. Still breathing, I spend YRC and land a bite, but predicting wake up super, I miss my opportunity to reverse the situation, and Rager takes the round. They've certainly shown that they're not going down without a fight, and if I allow their momentum to grow any further, this could quickly become a dangerous situation. So, a wall break is just what I needed to open up this round, and using a BRC, we're able to catch their backdash on the reset, furthering our lead until we unfortunately pop. But this is one of those pops that actually works out in my favor, as it keeps Ranger at full screen until I have all the blood in the world to secure my victory. Great games and nice adjustments. Hope to see you in more tournaments in the future. If you want to enter a fighting game tournament yourself, but you don't know how, I recently made a forbidden, all-encompassing guide to teach you how. Link for that will be in the description, but I realized there is one topic in that video that needs further explanation. I'm sure you've all heard of a little something called the Drunken Fist. And while it worked out for Rock Lee, and if you're of age, it can certainly be a buff in slower-paced fighting games like Street Fighter and Smash Bros. Ultimate, I'm warning you, the same is not true for Strive. The confidence boost just isn't worth the hit you'll take to your reaction time, especially in such a fast-paced game. But you don't just have to take it from me. Take it from my little green friend.
Good to drive you are not. Good at Strive you are not.
As we slither our way through the loser side of fish sticks and flash kicks, our next opponent is Ryusui the Chipmane. About a year ago, this was the character I hated to fight the most. But now, with a more solid understanding of the matchup, I find the first opening and take a huge lead. Eventually, Ryu does spend their burst, and though I get the anti-air, my DP wasn't quite close enough for the kill, and Chip takes control of the momentum. I try to interrupt their pressure with 2P, but I get punished for it, and a command grab takes me down to half. With no Citrus Berry on deck, the health we have is the health we'll have to work with, and it's not until Ryu whiffs a sweep that I'm able to escape the corner with a Rekka and sloppily finish the job with a spin. Round 2 begins with Ryu shimmying my grab to push me to the corner. There I block their first cross-up, but not their second. So it's time to hold faultless defense in the corner until I can find the perfect time to interrupt. But unfortunately my OTG doesn't connect, and we're forced to spend burst. However, it doesn't change the situation as Ryu quickly pushes me back to the wall and gets me down to just 15% health, before I land a much-needed YRC and a lucky bite. Which once again does not change the situation, but luckily I do not get sent through the wall and now have a ridiculous amount of blood to spend. I don't convert off of it though, and I'm unable to stop Chip's next approach as well, which almost does me in. until Ryu whiffs a grab. It then turns into a huge scramble as they spend burst, I end up popping, and then they outspeed my 5H to take the round. After a trade to open round 3, I push in to take the advantage, but Ryu checks my Fukio and forces out an early burst. And even though I'm able to stop their jump in with a 2H, playing with such high blood is not ideal for this matchup, as it forces me to give up space more often than I'd like. And after failing to block Chip's overhead, I use BRC hoping to find a close slash anti-air, but it doesn't work out, and Ryu sends me through the wall. They play it patiently, and the 2H panic response returns, and Ryu punishes it to win game 1. Here we go, game 2, and it's already off to a wonderful start. 2 bites has me hungry for a third, and they spend burst to gain some ground, but I spend mine to keep my momentum. And after this wall stick, a super definitely would have killed, but sometimes you gotta go for the style points to strike fear into your opponent. And a 6P finishes the round soon after. In round 2, I win round start again, but do not extend my combo nearly as much as I should have. So it's now Ryu extending their pressure from one side of the screen to the other. But with a 5k I escape, and catching Ryu's startup with a close slash sets me up perfectly for a bite, off of which I have no excuse for not killing, but we managed to pick up the round anyways. In round 1 of game 3, I bait out an early burst to gain the first advantage, and after getting DP'd, I punish Ryu's meaty attempt with a throw to keep that advantage. With their back against the wall though, their defense is super strong in this interaction, and a well-timed 6P keeps me from resetting my pressure again. And even as I bring Ryu within an inch of their life, their decision making does not appear to be clouded in the slightest, as ending this combo with a super will prevent neutral from resetting even after I'm sent through the wall, and with a couple of ballsy reads on my wake-ups, Ryu secures an insane comeback in this round. In round 2, I start with a jump read, carry Ryu to the corner, and fake them out with a clone to land a bite. And ooh, that's gonna be strike 2 of trying to meaty me after you DP, and with one final pickup, the round is mine in just under 15 seconds. A trade at the start of round 3 leaves me with the advantage, and after a bite on wake up, I wonder what situation will happen next. That's strike 3, history repeats itself again, and after a burst bait, that's the game. Now, that was a pretty convincing couple of rounds, but this next one belongs entirely to Ryu. After a solid start, they keep me locked down in the corner for the whole match, as even when I do find openings, I fail to convert off of them, and even after spending my burst, Ryu is ready to punish my jump in. At dangerously low health and high blood, a YRC is my last hope, but a jab check is enough to end the round. The following round, I punish a backdash and then a wake up DP to do about 90% of Chip's health in just under 10 seconds. After the neutral reset, I catch Ryu's approach with a 6P, and though it could have easily converted into the kill, I end up catching a jump to win the round anyways. Forcing Ryu down to their tournament life, we definitely start to see a stronger defense from them, but a single anti-air is still going to convert into about 70% of their health. But popping means a single grab is also going to do about 70% of mine, and after blocking my YRC, Ryu takes the advantage. I tried to clutch up on defense here, even blocking the overhead I was struggling with, but a command grab takes me down to 1 HP, and a cross-up ties up the set score. So here it is, Game 5, and it's been a weird set so far, but this game will decide the winner once and for all. And me and Nago being a duo that rely heavily on reads over reactions, closing out this set will be a true test of heart. So hopefully getting such a solid prediction to win round 1 gives me the confidence I need as we once again bring Ryu to set point. And even though they win round start, trading with my 2H gives me a huge advantage. And after stopping my Rekka short to land a bite, I once again read their DP to get a massive punish that leaves them with only a sliver of health and sends them through the wall. Now, this will be a neutral reset, but on Ryu's next opening, it's playing around their overhead that makes the difference and wins me the set. That was a wild ride. So many quick rounds, so many crazy plays. Great games, Ryusui. After barely clutching a Game 5 victory against Ryusui, we now must face Kid Dracula in Losers Round 3. And this is a match I'm super excited for, as Kid has a strong reputation as an Ino main, and this is the second tournament set of Ino matchup experience we're getting today. Since I've never beaten an Ino in tournament before, this is XP I most definitely need. Also, at my local tournaments, I have a little bit of a bracket demon, a problem matchup against a player that also mains Ino. Anyways, Kid being able to hold their advantage in this opening round for so long has got me feeling like... And after one more reset, I do manage to find a yellow, but they spend an aggressive burst and seal the deal. But I won't let that be a representation of this entire set, and as we head into round 2, things are already looking much better. After this wall break, Kid's gonna be sitting at about 20% health, and by landing a 2H, I find the rest of the damage I need to secure the perfect. In round 3, I win round start and get another early lockdown on Kid, catching their up back with a jab before leaving it to my Rekka to take care of the corner pressure. But as I'm pushed out with faultless defense, Kid patiently waits out my attempts to catch their approach, and ultimately takes the advantage. I block a cross-up, but with a double overhead, Kid finds another knockdown pushing me towards a very dangerous spot. Luckily though, I find the best burst I could have ever hoped for in this situation. And now is the time to apply what we learned earlier when fighting Locky. Hesitation is defeat, and if you're gonna do a mix-up, you need to do it fast. In the next game, I open with one of Nago's safest round start options, and Kid Dracula spends an early burst to gain some ground. But after blocking their Darth Sidious twirl, a counter hit grants me back the space I lost before my Fukio gets jab checked and Kid tacks on a little bit of damage while setting up their mix. Although, with some solid defense and a YRC, I avoid spending my burst and make it my turn, during which you'll see some rinse and repeat Rekkas, but they work out in pushing Kid to the other side of the screen and ultimately set up for some huge damage and pressure. And with so much blood to spend, I definitely see the opportunity to kill off Chip, but they waited out the storm and eventually take another turn of their own. I'm okay taking a little bit of damage and plan on holding on to my burst until I get counter hit. Then I get a bit greedy, but luckily, Blood Rage comes in clutch to act as a second burst, and I narrowly win the round at the extent of my range. Next round, Kid uses an air dash to avoid my round start clone, and punishes a whiffed bite to gain the first advantage. But by catching an overextension, I force out a burst. With a well-placed jump, I'm able to halt their approach, and with a clone, I take the life lead. Which means I now have the range and position to start controlling the skies with 2H guilt-free. But knowing that one more stray hit could mean certain death in Game 2, Kid Dracula is extremely patient in escaping the corner and puts together a max range offensive string that completely turns the tides of battle. Catching 2 of my wake-ups in a row, they convert into the wall stick and actually might have killed if not for a misinput. Regardless, that leaves us in a max range neutral with little to no spending blood. When somehow, we warp right through Ino's note, just to get a sip of that voodoo blood force, before we survive Ino's dive on just 1 HP, spend burst, and win the game with a panic DP. With a 2-0 lead, I begin to see a light at the end of the tunnel that is the Ino matchup, and after fiending for that early bite, Kid bursts me away from the corner, not wanting to deal with my blood drain buffed pressure. But my gold burst saves me from their pressure before I just barely miss space, and then decide to spend all of my meter to gain back the momentum. Which definitely pays off, because after one more opening, I find the conversion I need to push Kid Dracula down to their tournament life. But when someone has their back against the wall, you never know how they might react. And in this case, I definitely didn't expect Kid to walk me down with all the confidence in the world. So by the time I find my own opening, I'm already sitting at half health. And predicting my spin, Kid escapes the corner and recognizes a strong hint of greed in my play. A YRC keeps me locked in the corner, and since I have no burst, this could be checkmate for Eno. So at this point, I'm hoping for a YRC to save me from despair, but Kid sees it coming and punishes to secure the round. In round 3, I start strong, but spent a lot of blood to do so, and after whiffing my bite, my confidence and my burst escape me. And following a check on my Fukio, Eno does what Eno does best, snowball. While she doesn't get a massive amount of damage off of each opening, it certainly racks up over time as I'm carried from coast to coast. But with not much health remaining, I do interrupt with a back throw, manage to get all of my blood back with a bite, and even bait out Kid's burst. Nago definitely gets a bit more reward for his risk, but after failing to convert off of a set-winning 5k, I'm pushed to max range at max blood with maximum levels of impatience. So, as we head into Game 4, we're in a much more dangerous situation than we were before. Having been only one hit away from taking the set 3-0, and then losing that opportunity, did a lot of damage to my mental game. And with full meter, Eno becomes a far greater adversary, and exposes a beast that exists at the core of my Nago. One that's scared, one that's desperate to get this over with. If we don't tame the beast here and now, Kid could tie things up before we have the chance to figure out what's going wrong and what adaptations need to be made. So what is going wrong? Well, on offense, we're giving Kid too much breathing room to reset the neutral as they please. And on defense, well, are we even playing defense? Thinking back to our match against Loki, I'd mentioned how in this matchup, it's often too late to play defense once Eno has already found her way in. No, I need to work harder in neutral, because in this matchup, defense is played at mid-range. But as we head into the final round of Game 4, a well-placed clone lets me skip the neutral I was so worried about playing, and after baiting out Kid's burst, I secure a massive advantage. And now, it will be time to put our neutral adaptations to the test. That means keeping a safe distance until we find the perfect time to strike. Which is right about now, as we make a hard read on Kid's jump and anti-air to win the set and advance in the bracket. Good games, dog. I'm sure we'll be playing again soon. People have been saying that the Burger King prize pool isn't real. It's a hoax, they say. It's a lie. And why, oh why, might they be saying such things? It's because deepfake footage has surfaced of me buying Whoppers instead of winning them in a tournament. But that footage isn't real. The Burger King prize pool is out there, and I grow closer to finding it every day. Most recently, I won an auction for the King's Viver card, and it just so happens to be leading me to Las Vegas, the home of Evo. I will find you there, Burger King. I'm gonna get you. We finally did it. We finally defeated an Eno main in tournament, and a strong one at that. But it's no time to celebrate yet, as our next opponent is Luke, one of the best Happy Chaos mains in the business, who, after a strong round start, sets up some Chaos corner pressure that can be seemingly infinite if you don't find a lucky escape like me. But an aggressive burst sends me back where I belong, I dodge the first curse but not the second, and Luke sets up the tricky zoning that Chaos is known for. I have some blood to spend once that clone is gone, but recognizing that, Luke flips the switch from defense to offense to prevent a reversal situation. after which I hard commit and pay the price for it, as after spiraling into blood rage, I get chipped by one more bullet and die. In round 2, I once again lose the opening exchange and spend an early burst to avoid a repeat of the last round. But after getting opened up again, I find myself cursed at full screen, which, if not for the threat of blood to spend, could mean checkmate in this matchup. Luckily, I do have blood to spend, and Luke makes the decision to halt their zoning, rushing in to hit me with a nasty high-low, and though their clip is empty, they punish my Fukio and continue their offense in the opposite direction. But I backdash to avoid their dust, and finally find myself in the driver's seat. And yeah, being at such low health, it's pretty much imperative that I win off of this interaction. So I finish my Rekka to keep the blood balanced, and RC to keep my pressure going. And luckily FD pushed me outside the range of Chaos 2D, and I'm able to keep my pressure alive, now having another Roman cancel to spend. But I make a misplay here going for 5k instead of close slash, and though I build burst in time to save myself, and I don't get punished for spinning right into clone, it's ultimately Luke's patience that earns him the last laugh, and game 1. In round 1 of game 2, Mom said it's my turn to win round start, but dropping my combo early gives Luke the breathing room he needs to get his own pressure going and force out my burst. Luckily, I don't get punished for hitting clone, but after failing to intercept combat roll, I eat the most classic of Happy Chaos frame traps, and I'm put in a wall stick situation. A guard crush on the way down doesn't prevent me from getting a cheeky counter hit and forcing out Luke's burst before I get wall slumped and then spend YRC to hopefully turn the tides of battle. And that was a mouthful that took way too many takes, so kindly wait your turn while I push you to the other side of the screen. Where in level 2, 6H doesn't combo, I don't have an RC to confirm a kill off dust, and I greedily pop before I can secure the round. Nice patience, Luke. In the second round, my clone gets the better of Chaos Sweep and earns me a solid advantage that my greedy bite ruins while Luke holds up back, ready to deliver the pain. But even as I'm pinned to the wall, I already know I'm going to risk it on a back throw situation, which pays off and allows me to establish a sizable lead that is further extended by the juiciest of bites. And that should have been checkmate, but I'm a bit too hesitant. Luke escapes the corner, and I spend my burst. Which is more than just a little frustrating, as even with a solid lead, it's now up to me to play the aggressor while Luke sets up his zone. Though, a little piece of matchup knowledge lets me break through that zone, and this time I do have enough meter to confirm a kill off of dust. To kick off round 3, we see an immediate adaptation from Luke, who jumps to avoid my clone, and finds the first opening. And I'd like to point out how strong his use of faultless defense is, as he perfectly uses it to push me outside of 5H range. And thus, I have unwillingly helped him set up his zone. And one misinputted 6k later, I find myself eating massive damage from a wall break and a super, which won't even give me another chance at neutral when all is said and done. And so, I'm stuck on the defensive while Luke enjoys his positive bonus, using it for another high-low that forces out my burst before I take one more turn that only ends in pain. Still with no points on the board, I need to follow in Luke's footsteps and make some adaptations to my game plan if I hope to bring this back. And the first thing we can fix is our use of blood gauge. In this matchup, getting bursted off your opponent and sent to full screen while you're in level 3 blood is incredibly detrimental. Because of that, we made sure burst was off the table before spending enough blood to make it to level 3. And it paid off big time, as we've now secured a huge life lead before Luke finds his first real advantage of the round. He does get me down to half with that throw, but it's not the end of the world because we still have burst, and any clones created by Luke will significantly drain what precious little life he has left. So with blood to spend, I wait out this storm knowing Luke will have to approach here. After blocking his high, I get him down to a sliver and use my next turn to drain his meter until he's susceptible to chip and I've secured a checkmate. Next round, I lose round start, and to be honest, I make some poor decisions from a place of impatience. Oftentimes, even after small victories, you don't want to play defense. you want to return to what's comfortable and go right back on the offense. But as I get bursted, my blood gauge creeps up to level 3, I find myself in the situation I described as incredibly detrimental, and I am no longer left with the option to play offense. No, the only option I have left is death. In round 3, I'd like to claim that I'm committing to a stronger defense, but realistically, I owe my advantage state to a lucky back throw incident. But it allows my conditioning in round 1 to seriously pay off here, as my strike throw pressure finally hits in just the right way. And after seeing the truth reflected in Nago's blade, you guys already know what kind of degeneracy I'm going to be up to after this wall break. One demonic mix-up later, we achieve victory in Game 3. We keep things rolling into Game 4 by winning round start and carrying Luke to the corner. And after a throw tech, I set up the same spacing trap that forced out burst at the beginning of Game 3, but this time I jump Luke's preceding curse to keep my advantage before throwing it away with a whiffed bite and spending my own burst a little too late to keep Luke in the corner. Though that whiffed bite is likely what conditioned Luke to jump here, and catching said jump allows me to close out a rather convincing round. So even though I experience a slight loss in the next round start, it doesn't affect my momentum, and I quickly reverse the situation. After challenging Luke's faultless defense with a bite, one more pickup leads to a wall break and a super. And as I stare into my blade, I realize that if I can find just one more opening once we break through this wall, I'll be able to tie up the score and secure the momentum heading into Game 5. But we both knew I wanted another throw, and so I'm forced to play it patiently until I find my next block string. And this is also where Luke really ramps up his defense and reactions, checking my Fukio to initiate a comeback strategy. After reloading the Blicky, he sends me through the wall to reset neutral, where I use a blue RC for the frame advantage, only to get my Fukio checked once more. But on the defensive, I interrupt his second overhead to create some breathing room, and he extends that breathing room to make room for Jesus and all his disciples. And there ain't much I can do about it, so I wait for him to come to me, build a YRC, and then use an immediate tap dust to close the round. Since he had meter for faultless defense and a burst, and I was at high blood, it would have been far too risky to try to kill off chip damage. Anyways, that brings us to a final game situation, and in this brutal 50-50 matchup, the player with the quicker adaptations and the more thoughtful decision making will emerge victorious. Speaking of adaptations, after this back throw, we're about to see the same situation for a third time. I once again jump curse, but Luke blocks my aerial pursuit this time and avoids my greedy bite to get the punish and the side switch. And after a wall stick, a full reload, and a wall break, he uses BRC to get the frame advantage he needs to close out the round, even finishing me off with a super for the mental damage and the momentum buff going into the next one. Which admittedly starts out great for me, but quickly goes south as a just block pushes me outside of bite range and Luke forces out my burst. And it's then that he lands a ballsy 6S, which is probably the best combo starter he could have asked for, as getting the full screen corner carry with the Ex Machina finisher is gonna leave me in quite the horrible situation. As I wake up on the other side in level 3 blood, I know I'll need or want to gamble it all on one final mix-up. But it's stopped in its tracks, and Luke wins the set 3-2. Great set, man. I feel like I learned a lot. With an overall score of 3 wins and 2 losses, I placed 13th in fish sticks and flash kicks. A very decent run. And since you've made it all the way here, please sub. Come on, stick around, rest at this bonfire. There isn't a place you're more welcome than here. But anyways, well, I am happy to have gotten my first tournament win against Eno, and I'm proud of how I fared against Luke. It's once again that sad time where I must say goodbye. So until next time, my friends, we shall meet again when I finally find the king.